Welcome to 5 Good Minutes
You're listening to today's inspirational message on the book of Esther
with Kurt Bjorklund.
Well, Esther chapter 4 is probably the best known chapter in Esther because it's where Esther makes her bold and famous declaration where she basically says that she will go into the king, though it's against the law, and if I perish, I perish, verse 16. Mordecai also gives the challenging, well-known speech, verse 13 and following. He says, "Do not think to yourself that in the king's palace you will escape any more than all the other Jews. For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise from the Jews from another place. But you and your father's house will perish, and who knows whether or not you've come to the kingdom for such a time as this." And it's famous because this is one of those statements that captures something heroic. Here is Esther put in the king's palace, and Mordecai has learned about this plot to kill all the Jewish people. And he says to her, "Why don't you go into the king? Because you've attained this place, who knows, maybe for such a time as this." And she notes that it's against the law. So if the queen appeared before the king without an invitation, or any person did, they could just be simply put to death. So this was a bold move for her. And this is a moment where her life hangs in the balance and she's deciding, do I step out or do I stay where I am? And so sometimes we think that when we are undecided, that our undecided state, our indecision can be justified. But there are moments in our lives where indecision isn't even an option, because to not do something is to decide. What I mean by this is we may think I'm just collecting more data, I'm taking more time to decide, but your very indecision is actually a decision. And that would have been the case for Esther in this place, because she would have been simply saying, I'm going to sit here and hope for the best. And who knows, maybe God has put you where you are for such a time as this. And the feeling of being distressed or afraid can be put aside to say, I am going to move forward. And I think it's important to say here that feeling courage is different than acting in courage. Sometimes people will feel a sense of, I feel emboldened and like I'm going to do something. And so they want to act on something. But this is courage to the contrary. We see sometimes in modern protests, people will go out and feel like they're speaking truth to power and they're being real out there. But they're really just joining a crowd. There's no personal risk to it because it's their friends and their identity groups who are all saying, hey, well, this is what we believe, and we're all speaking truth to power. That is not this. This is Esther actually facing being killed if she doesn't act. And so here she is saying, you know what, I am going to move forward, because she was facing potential death really either way in this scenario. And so sometimes, in some sense, this decision was clear, but it still isn't clear until you stand there and have to say, am I going to take a bold step? And for you, it's unlikely that death and a king's harem speak directly to where you are today. But my guess is there are places where you have the opportunity to speak about who God is, what God means to you, what's right, what's wrong, to speak truth to power, maybe at the expense of a job, a promotion, maybe at the expense of kudos and acclaim from people in your life. But who knows, maybe this is the place God has placed you. And the attitude that Esther has, I will go, and if I perish, I perish, is really the attitude of faith of saying, I'm going to trust God in the midst of this rather than acting as one who is in a place where I'm only concerned about my own security.
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.